Welcome to Between Two Chairs, Demystifying Commercial Real Estate, the podcast that brings you the latest insights and trends on the South Florida commercial real estate market, with your hosts, Fernando Arencibia Jr. and Jennifer Wollmann. In each episode, we dive into the world of commercial real estate and break down complex concepts to make them accessible for everyone. Whether you're a real estate professional, a curious investor, or just interested in the South Florida market in general, Between Two Chairs is the podcast for you. So pull up a chair and join us.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Chairs. My name is Fernando Arencibia, and with me, as always, is the venerable, amazing, wonderful Jennifer Wollmann. Jennifer, say hi.
Hi. Did you say bearable or venerable?
It's called venerable.
Okay, I heard bearable, so I was I'm like, really?
It is.
Bear me?
You know, I think the problem is how suspicious you are. Right, when I'm just about to describe
I am. I hold my breath every single time. So in holding my breath, I might not hear as well because there's a little bit less oxygen going to the brain. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
And welcome back from summer vacation. It's the first week of August. So some of us in South Florida might still be on summer vacation because I don't think school starts quite yet. But
yeah.
So
it's right around the corner.
Yep. And we're ready to go. So let's start this month off with our theme for the month.
Absolutely.
So real estate, we always talk about how real estate is a relationship business. Actually, I think most businesses are relationship based, sure. But you hear that over and over again in real estate. So I thought our theme for August would be relationship building.
Yeah.
You and I speak a lot about building communities, the importance of the community, et cetera. But in life, in reality, we're part of multiple communities, right? The ones that we physically live in, such as the county, the city, the neighborhood, et cetera. But then there are also those communities that we join, such as our work or professional one, our hobby-based ones, our spiritual/religious-based ones, et cetera. So I thought today we would talk about some of the commercial real estate communities that we are either currently associated with or have been a part of over the years, or other ones in the community that we know about. And the reason we are doing this is because of the importance of relationship building. And so if you're new to Florida, or you're new to commercial real estate, or you're new to a different asset class, if you're interested in another asset class than one that you're the most familiar with, a lot of the networking opportunities in these different communities and associations are very, very valuable. And you and I the other day were speaking about the importance of how, especially in commercial real estate, relationships with other brokers is super important because the market's different. It's not like you have an MLS to look for properties. A lot of stuff trades or numbers come out based on information that isn't publicly known yet, such as lease rates and terms, et cetera, that are going on. So the importance of networking locally with your fellow people in CRE, whether they're other brokers or owner users, is super important.
So here's the great news. The great news is that when you get involved in commercial side of the real estate business, you realize there's already an incredible community infrastructure that has been built through a variety of different organizations. And the reality about commercial real estate is that there is quite a learning curve that you have to go through. But the reality is that a lot of what you have to learn by doing. A lot of what you have to learn by experiencing it. And a lot of what you have to learn, it's not going to be in a book. But it's going to be in the opportunities that some of these organizations present. I understand that there is community in residential real estate. There is community in every industry, right?
Of course.
And those that seek it will find it. But what I found really interesting in the commercial side of the business is that I think perhaps because we are less in numbers, but there's more, there's less density, and as far as the number of brokers and the number of people that are engaged, but also because there's hyper specialization, because people focus on so many different aspects of the commercial ecosystem, that there is really a tight-knit community that develops and has developed over the years. And when you get into real estate, into the commercial side of the business, there's nothing more eye-opening than when you go and do a tour of a neighborhood with a group of commercial real estate practitioners, to just hear the conversations about how they're looking at the neighborhood, what are the things that catch their attention when they tour a site, the questions that they ask. I think it's so important when you're getting into commercial real estate that you become a sponge for a lot of those things. And I remember when I walked into some of these meetings, I would, and this is before I had an iPhone where I could just write notes down, but I would mentally write notes of things that I heard that I didn't know what they were, so that I could go to the office or home and research them. And I believe that there was a huge part of my learning was doing things like that. And I think it's a blessing that there are those opportunities that are available out there for people. And so, today we thought that we would highlight some of those opportunities and some of those organizations that continually provide those settings for you to learn, for you to interact, for you to engage with other people. I think there's nothing more impactful than, to your point about it being a relationship business. I think that broker to broker, we develop deeper relationships in the commercial side of the business than we do in any other aspect of the business. Don't you agree?
I do. Definitely. And just to get started so that we can start listing some of them. So obviously, once you get a real estate license, you do not have to be a realtor, right? You don't have to join the National Association of Realtors. You're a real estate sales associate or a real estate broker. But we, as a brokerage, decided that we wanted to be a part of the National Association of Realtors because of the wide reach that they have, especially the advocacy. We're big advocates, and we think that the National Association of Realtors has done more for commercial related legislation and private property rights. So we're huge fans and members of the National Association of Realtors. That breaks down into then Florida Realtors and your local Realtors Association. And we're a member of, obviously, Miami Realtors, which just merged with Broward and the Beaches, and also with Martin County. So we are now probably close to 100,000 members. And what I love about that is the amount of data and education and hyper-local expertise that we get for all of Southeast Florida. And that's what this podcast, actually, that's a market that we work in all the time, right? That is our main market. Yes, mostly Miami, but when people outside of Florida hear the words Miami, they're thinking Miami all the way up to the Palm Beaches, right? They're not thinking the Keys are separate. And so the fact that we have all of that coverage and all of the data and all the zoning info and everything in one place makes it super easy to not only get to be a specialist in the overall market, but then to have great connections with land specialists in Martin County, with industrial people in West Palm Beach, that kind of stuff. So the Realtor Association is one of them. And then kind of like an affiliate of the Realtor Association are different subcategories, right? Like you have the CCIM, which stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member, SIOR, which is the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. You have IREM, which is, I don't know, the Institute of something or other, Real Estate Management, right? You have the Land Institute, which is people specializing in land. Now, you do not need to be a realtor member to be a member of those institutes.
Right.
And each of those institutes, though they are national, also have local chapters and are a great source for now the niche, right? So we were talking earlier, I was talking earlier about the greater community. So the greater community would be the national. And then now we're getting into the hyperlocal and the niche specialty. And then there's separate from the Realtor Association, you have things like ICSC, which used to be the International Council of Shopping Centers. They rebranded, but I still affiliate them with that name. So I keep calling them that mainly because it's retail focused. Right. Then there's CRE, which is the Commercial Real Estate Women's Network, and they help women advance in commercial real estate. And it's all aspects of commercial real estate, includes legal, development, design, etc. And then we get into some of the hyper locals, and then if you want to go macro, you do ULI, which is Urban Land Institute. Right. And that again is international, and they deal more with like community planning and urban planning and all that kind of stuff. Right. But all of these are great sources of information. So again, if you're moving to an area, get involved with the local chapters of any of these that are very hyper specific to your area, especially if you weren't a member in the state or county where you were moving from.
Yeah, I remember, when I started, I'm glad you mentioned Miami, and, who always had a focus on the commercial side, and they do these things called commercial marketplace where you get to go and basically exchange properties that you're working on, new offerings that are coming, things that are on market, things that are off market. I remember a lot of people that would first show up to those meetings for the first time were just there to listen. They wanted to know what kind of, opportunities there were. They wanted to learn about the market. So, great opportunities. And all these other organizations, they always have these, usually monthly regular meetings where you can meet like-minded individuals, other professionals, people that have a lot of experience, people that are new to the industry. It really runs the entire gamut.
Mm-hmm. So, and then locally too, for those in Miami, there's the Commercial and Industrial Association of South Florida. What I love about all these different entities is they do a lot of education, but they also provide a lot of networking events. So like CCIM, locally, they do a lunch chapter where once a month they have like a lunch and learn almost, where they have somebody come and speaking about an issue important to commercial brokers in the area, law changes, et cetera. And then you've got the opportunity to network. They'll do stuff. Not only you can network at the lunch, but they will do things that are more relationship building, like a Topgolf event, and they will combine with other associations in the local area to help you expand your networking opportunities.
And you get to really know, a market. You get to really know the players in that marketplace, and you get to know a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. A lot of these organizations, they will do these neighborhood tours, especially when they see an area that maybe is getting a little bit of new attention, and new focus, but maybe the marketplace doesn't really know the ins and outs, and they'll bring someone who really knows that market to kind of walk you through it. And it gives you a lot of insight into the history. It gives you a lot of insight into the pluses and, the challenges in a very hyper local marketplace. And also, to get 30, 40 people on a bus, in the middle of the day to walk through all these neighborhoods, and, the interaction among everybody, the camaraderie that you build, and just really the relationships. And there's a reason why those relationships are important, and why these organizations continue to get a lot of support from people attending these meetings. And I've had to travel recently, so I haven't attended a few of those, and I miss that connectivity, because why that is important is because, we call each other a lot when it comes to when we're looking at a product and, we know someone has a certain expertise or they just sold something like it, down the road, and we want to kind of get a feel for what was that experience like? Did you get a lot of attention? What were any issues that you saw that people were complaining about of the neighborhood or whatever it is? There are things that you learn so much. And I want to also add that in these organizations, it's not only the brokers, but it's everything that is an auxiliary to the commercial business, is the lenders that you meet,
Right.
the appraisers and
The inspectors, yeah.
To have a relationship, we've spoken about this in the past, but to have a relationship with a good commercial appraiser is worth a lot. But you build that because, when they call you, you answer, you give them information, you help them do their job, but they also give you a lot of great feedback as to what they're seeing in the marketplace, how they're valuing certain things, what's changing, what dynamics have entered into their valuation dynamic. I mean, it's impactful and it's important. And you build this business not only with the relationships, obviously, that you have with your clients and the people that you serve, but you build this business with the colleagues that make up this world that is significantly smaller. Miami, before the merger, was about 60,000 members. There were 3,000 commercial members. So if you look at the dynamic, again, we are few but mighty, but that community really relies on each other to provide the best service to the public.
Well, and the insights to each other, right? So if you see something, commercial, again, isn't as visible in terms of a lot of the background information. I mean, I guess the same is true in residential, but I think more so in commercial. So if you see an outline sale or you hear about a large, lease that was done, if you have those relationships with those brokers, you can go in and say, hey, you did this lease, which seems to be, a lot bigger and a lot longer than what's going on. Can you give me some of the insights? What was the thinking? And then that just gives you a better overview of some of the workings that are going on in your community and can lead you to see either trends or, before they actually get printed and realized by everybody else.
So you get parachuted into a new market, right? You want to do commercial real estate. So what are the first things that you do to get to know an area, to begin to develop those relationships? And I think that this is what we're talking about. This is kind of like the pathway. Like, I remember first your local association, because, there is a lot of value in figuring out what kind of education they have, what kind of opportunities they have to connect, those kind of things. But then you go to your local CCIM chapter, of which there are many throughout the country, and you get to really know the players. You realize that some people are playing in different tiers, right? And you get to understand who's specializing in what. And then for me, I think that CCIM chapter kind of opens up to the SIORs of the world, the IRMs, the CIASF, all the other opportunities. And so, when we've spoken to agents that are in Tampa and Orlando, in Jacksonville, we always tell them that becomes your, kind of like your foundation to really understand a marketplace and to really begin to see where the opportunities are.
Well, and Florida is also a very international, right? We're a very international market. So we have a lot of foreigners coming and buying and investing in real estate or opening up local shops. So if you do have those relationships in CCIM, they're also international, and you can find a local chapter and be like, hey, we have this client looking over here. They're from your country. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the intricacies of how things work over there, so that then you can say to the client once they come over here, I know in, Turkey, for example, that things are done this way, or that this is, you don't have an LOI or you don't have this. This is how we do it here, just so that again, you guys are speaking the same language. So
Absolutely.
anyway, huge, short and sweet. We don't want to beat a
In the show notes, we're going to put links to all these organizations. I think it's important for, number one, for you to understand there is an incredible amount of support that is available for the commercial practitioner. Is it going to require a lot of time investment on your part? Yes. Is it going to require you to be present and attend a lot of these other, meetings and meetups and networking? I think it's very difficult to just be a cold caller and develop a business out of that. In commercial real estate, I think it is imperative that you network, but not only to network for new business, but to network for the people that are going to help you serve your client best, which is going to get you that new business and is going to, help you to deliver.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely take advantage of those opportunities because there's just a lot of, there's gold in those meetings.
And just in closing, remember that you should give more than you get. So when you go to these networking events, make sure you have something of value that you can share. If somebody calls you and wants to know the details, share as much as you can, as long as you don't have an NDA. Or what you can outside of the NDA. Just make sure that you also want to be a source, because if you're somebody that just constantly goes and gets and asks but isn't there to answer, then that also doesn't work. And the reality is I truly believe that the more you give, the more you get back.
Absolutely, partner. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Between Two Chairs. We look forward to connecting with you, and we appreciate everybody who takes their time to listen here. This is a short and sweet, but again, wanted to give a shout out to all the organizations that make this commercial real estate ecosystem so amazing to be a part of. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Say bye, Jennifer.
Bye.